Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Boy, is it a big day. First of all and foremost, it is Good Friday. So, prayers and blessings to everybody, all my brother and sister Christians in the world who are, Good Friday is an interesting day for those of us that are Christian. It's a day where we both celebrate and mourn, right? I mean, the fact that we had to hang Jesus on a cross to get salvation is kind of a sad thing, but at the same time, we're awful grateful that he was willing to do it for us. So, it's an interesting day, and I guess it depends on who you talk to as to how they feel about it. But we have to start the day with acknowledgement of the gift of salvation that we were given by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so, for those of you, my brothers and sisters who don't know Christ, I pray that you find him. But for my part, I got to tell you guys, it's a beautiful, beautiful day. That's kind of a mix of happy and sad. It's also, I got a little bit of sad today myself, and I don't do a whole lot of the personal stuff, but I do need to acknowledge on this Good Friday, very late last night, early this morning, my mother passed away, Kathleen Louise Brindley Wren. She would hate that I was acknowledging her publicly because she was very private. But we lost my mother last night after, well, quite a few years of struggling with all sorts of things. She made it a long time. But I'm praying that my mother is resting in peace and enjoying the salvation brought to us by Jesus. So that being out there, let's move on to some other stuff because we got big news today, and we don't want to. There's lots of good things today, lots of good things, including President Trump recognizing that COVID is from a lab. This is a huge deal. The White House put a big thing acknowledging this. It is a very big deal. We're going to get into a lot of that. We also have with us, we have Maha Mike is joining us. And Mike actually went to high school in Florida where Epstein was recruiting young girls for his child rape program. That's a very, very big deal. I mean, so Mike has a really unique perspective on this. And I want to talk about the complete lack of anything being done with that. I mean, it's shocking. Yeah, nobody's even talking about it anymore. I mean, Bondi's trying so hard to sweep this under the rug, and I don't understand. Well, maybe I understand why, but at the end of the day, we do need some action on this. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, let me ask you a question. I want to bring you this from one of our great sponsors. If you're a homeowner, I need you to listen to this, right? When's the last time you checked on your home title? Now, your title, that's the legal proof you own your house. If you're like me, the answer is never. Who checks their title, right? The problem is in today's AI cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles, and your equity in your home is their target. They want your equity. Here's how it works. So these criminals, they forge your signature. They only have to do it on one document. They use a fake notary stamp. They pay a small fee with your county, and then boom, your home title has been transferred out of your name. From there, these criminals, they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property. You don't even know what's happening until you get collections or foreclosures notices. Then right? But it's kind of too late. That's why you need to stop what you're doing right now and find out today if you're already a victim. Use promo code RENS at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You'll also get a free title history report, a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com now, use promo code RENS, and that's HometitleLock.com. You want to go to HometitleLock.com and use promo code RENS. Folks, I urge you to take a look at this. This is a sponsor that I'm really proud to be pushing. They're good people. You definitely want to check them out. Also, we need your support. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw. GiveSendGo.com/RensLaw. Anything that you can do to help promote, to support, to get our word out, that's useful. It's right here. I will show you on the screen. That's what it looks like. Just get there. Like I said, weekly support is a huge deal for us, or monthly support, or whatever you can support us. And Also, make sure you're checking out our affiliates. We got a bunch of wonderful people. Scroll down, of course, Maha Mike with his air water healing stuff is going to be on today. And also, we want to make sure you're checking out Heaven's Harvest, natural heirloom seeds and prepper food. Just wonderful, wonderful products. Great, great, great companies. And then again, as I said, also make sure you're checking out Air Water Healing from Maha Mike, who, by the way, is right here with us. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. How are you?
I got to fit in a in the intro, so I mean I'm doing great. It's a little bit of a rough night, but doing as well as you can do today. And
Well, real quick before we get into that, there's nothing better than live on the air. And when the Heavenly Father calls to do, I want to do something for you real quick. I want to just pray for you, dear Heavenly Father. I lift up the heart of my dear friend Tom, whose world has been shaken by a loss that you saw coming, and maybe they were prepared, maybe they weren't for. But I ask that you surround him with your perfect peace, the kind that surpasses all human understanding. Wrap him, his wife, in your loving arms and remind them, even in the shadow of death, dear Heavenly Father, you tell us that we are not alone. I just ask that your light pierce through the weight of their sorrow. I ask that you give him strength for each new day and courage to face the moments when grief feels overwhelming. Remind him, especially on this day when you were crucified on a cross, you bridge the gap, dear Heavenly Father, between the tree of truth and knowledge and the tree that is mentioned in Revelations. That is the tree that gets us to heaven, which is the one that you were hung on over 2,000 years ago. I ask that you please lift up Tom and you just comfort his heart. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And thank you, Mike. I appreciate that a lot. God's good. He's got our back, and as long as we acknowledge that, we're okay here. So
absolutely.
Mom's got peace now, and a peace that she wouldn't have otherwise had. So Mike, first of all, by the way, everybody go to TomRenz.com. That's www.tomrenz.com. Check out our shop, go to our partners and affiliates, and check out Air Water Healing. So I've got one of Mike's air purifiers, and the difference it makes in the air quality in your house is monumental. It's like, and it's not even that big. It just is. I don't even know. But it's great. It's a great product. So make sure you're checking that out. At some point, I want to get his water filtration stuff in the house too. That's on my to-do list because it's a pretty awesome product, and we need that to get the crap out of our water. But anyways, Mike, so you went to school. You went to high school where they were recruiting little girls for the Epstein child rape program, right?
Yeah.
Think about that, folks. I want you to hear what I just said. I just asked someone. So you went to high school in a place where they were recruiting children for a child rape program, and that's what it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had a bunch of old millionaire, billionaire, powerful political people who Epstein was providing underage girls for sexual services. Now, if that doesn't make you uncomfortable to hear, there's something wrong with you. Now, let me throw this out. We've got all the documentation. We have all the videos. They seized all the stuff that Epstein was using to blackmail people. And we are now, I think, 60 plus days since Bondi's been confirmed. She was going to have this on her desk day one. We are, we're quite a ways in, and nothing, literally nothing. And in fact, they're doing everything they can avoid even talking about this. Mike, what do you think? I'm interested in your perspective as someone who actually, I mean, because, you were a kid. You probably thought of it one way when you were a kid. Now you're an adult. You got a family, you got stuff like that. What do you tell me a little bit about your perspective on this?
My perspective is that the women are not going to come forward and speak anymore. They're scared. Think about how many prominent names have been mentioned on that Epstein flight log, let alone people that just visited him in Palm Beach. So I want you to remember that, Tom. Anybody that went to Palm Beach and was going to his socialite parties, there was no logs. The logs were the flight logs that were flying on his private jet to Epstein Island. Think about all the hundreds of people that came to his house in Palm Beach, where we knew he was getting naked, asking girls to remove their underwear and their bras, and giving him massages, and he was touching them inappropriately. And then not only that, they were giving them $300 to $400 in cash, and then encouraging these girls to go recruit other girls. So when they say that it was only maybe 12 to 15 girls from the Royal Palm Beach High School or Cardinal Newman, which is the Catholic school off of Palm Beach Lakes in Okeechobee, they were asking these girls to recruit other people. And now the further that we get away from it, right? Somebody Epstein, notoriously killed himself when the guard that was on duty, he was
so we hear,
and the camera just happens to go off. I think the bigger issue is every time that somebody starts to ask about the Epstein list, something happens, right? You either have an FSU school shooting, or you've got 6 women supposedly going into space on a mission where their logo, when turned upside down, looks like the devil. There's just there's so much conspiracy around. And Tom, you and I both know that when they say, hey, look, I have a shiny object right here, don't ask about what's happening here. Let's look over here. Let's misguide everybody. None of those women now are even wanting to continue to talk and share their story because they're fearful. Because what happens is, if somebody that's powerful, that's in our government, has raped one of these women or was an associate of Epstein's, and they're still around, when you see somebody in a public figure, they could be fearful that their family is going to become after. When you get that kind of money, and again, Tom, you and I have no idea how much money, whether there was NDAs that were signed, whether they bought people's silences, and or if some of these girls are just fearful.
Yeah, well, and I would say that if we can reach any of the girls who were used in this way, if any of you did sign an NDA on this, I would strongly recommend that you talk to a lawyer about it, because an NDA to not disclose unlawful actions is probably void. It's probably not valid. And no matter what they're threatening you with, a good lawyer should be able to assist you in getting through that. We do a lot of whistleblower work myself. And I can tell you that there are certain things that are generally true across the board. One of them is that you cannot ask someone to sign an NDA against illegal activity. So if there are any girls who heard this and who are fearful, and if there's anybody from the Epstein list that needs help, I will tell you, and I wasn't planning on do this, but if you contact us, you're going to have to provide real evidence. I don't want to hear I heard. I don't want to hear secondhand. But if you yourself were a victim of this and you're not getting anywhere and you've got actual evidence on it, I may be able to help you. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the specifics, but you're welcome to contact the show, and we can see what can be done, whether through the media. I don't know whether I'd be able to do anything on the law side or not. It would depend on the specifics of the case and whether it's, in a place where I was licensed to do so. But I will tell you that this is unacceptable to me. It is unacceptable that there were children that were raped and no one is going to jail over it, despite the fact that they have the video. And I want to focus on what you said, Mike, because this is critical. We know, okay, there's a couple dozen girls that were on the flight logs. How many were recruited locally from the different high schools or whatever that were at the Palm Beach mansion doing this? How many were, on the island? How many were brought into these different places where there are no flight logs, where there is no information of them? They just showed up and did their thing, and there's no records of it. So that's a real question, because this could be hundreds of girls. It could be thousands of girls. We have no idea. Based on what you saw, it's more than a dozen, though. Right?
100%, because you have to understand, when you go back to 2002, 2003, okay, you're talking right before we had the major financial, housing market collapse in 08, 09. Okay. Yeah. But $300 in 2003 was probably like $800 today, right? $900. You have a high school student who's 15 years old, who's walking around with $400 in her wallet. Everybody's talking about it. You notice it. You're like I told you before on your show, you're riding home from the bicycle. I was the most popular kid in 10th grade if I had a $20 bill in my pocket when we would stop at 7-Eleven on the way home. That was slushies for everybody. When
Yeah.
you've got $400, crisp $100 bills, people are like, where'd you get that? So
Yeah.
rumors were spreading around. And let me tell you this, if a 16-year-old boy on the soccer team or a 17-year-old track athlete heard that Sally Joe was going over to this fancy mansion in Palm Beach and giving massages and getting paid $300 to $400 to go to these parties,
Yep.
everybody was, and I hate to use the word, but it was kind of like slut shaming. People were like, oh, you went over there and you were with that creepy old dude. It was a well-known fact that he was recruiting and inviting girls over. And if you don't think that the parents were calling the Palm Beach Police Department and that they already were made aware of this, you don't come home with $400 and people not ask questions.
Yeah. Well, no question about that. Especially in some of the families that, weren't real wealthy and didn't have a lot of money like that sitting around. And, but I think that this is really one of the most important aspects of this is the scope, right? Yeah, everybody heard about Prince Andrew or Bill Gates or, these guys that are supposedly, have been pictured or accused of being with Epstein in various capacities. But the thing about it is there's not necessarily a record of someone who shows up at Palm Beach or shows up in New Mexico. I mean, you don't have to fly to get there, right? And if you fly to the airport, it doesn't mean you're flying. If you took the Lolita Express, well, that's a record. And if you're going to go to the island, well, that's that, right? But if you're going to one of his places in New York, for example, well, I mean, that's a different thing. So this could be hundreds or even thousands of politicians, billionaires, people of influence that were being blackmailed. We have no idea. And the fact that Bondi, and I'm calling it out, what possible excuse could you have for not arresting someone who you have video raping a child? Why would you be holding that back? And the list, yeah, I understand the flight list is just what it is. And you need to cross-reference to put this out properly. What they need to do, here's the process, right? So you're going to look at this. You're going to be looking at a RICO action potentially and a bunch of other things for some of the people. But for the guy that was blackmailed, right? The guy that got videoed, and I'm talking as a lawyer here, right? If I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, so I got this guy who was blackmailed. I don't have evidence that he really gave up anything substantially. Probably, maybe he's a congressperson and he changed his votes on some things because he was blackmailed. Okay, so I'm going to charge this guy with child rape and I'm going to ask him to testify about what happened. And I'm going to give him, I'm going to work with him on that so I can get more information from him. Putting that case together assists you in developing the RICO case and takes about, 5 minutes. It's not literally, it's the process, but there has been plenty of time. And the problem that I have, Mike, is that these people, there could be hundreds or thousands of people that are being blackmailed who have high-level security clearance, who are changing their votes in Congress, who are changing this, this is a major national security risk. And not one person has been charged. And because not one person has been charged, the people who are being blackmailed are probably all still being blackmailed. And the people who are blackmailing them are saying, listen, we've been able to prevent anybody from getting charged. If you want to make sure that continues, you're going to follow what we say, right? So this looks like something that allows the blackmail to continue. And yeah, the only way to rip that off is to start putting some prosecutions. Once you get one or two very high profile prosecutions, then the blackmailers lose their power. But until that happens, the blackmailers still have their power. And listen, nobody believes that Epstein was doing this in and of himself by himself. He was doing this with someone. Was it with foreign governments? I don't know. Was it with other billionaires? Was it with some sort of global cabal? We don't know who he was doing this with, but he certainly didn't just wake up one day and build this on his own. So here's your reaction.
Tom, this is my reaction. And I'm just going to ask you a plain and simple question. Okay. If a 16-year-old track star at Royal Palm Beach knew what was happening at Jeffrey Epstein's residence in Palm Beach County, do you think that Alan Dershowitz, Stephen Hawkins, David Copperfield, Donald Trump himself, Robert F. Kennedy, Les Wexner, do you think that they heard, Louis Frank, right, former FBI director who was named in the documents, details of his involvement obviously haven't been specified. But let me ask you, if a 16-year-old track star who the only thing he's thinking about is winning a 400-meter relay knew what was happening in Palm Beach at this rich dude's house, you're going to tell me that these politicians and rich people didn't have an inkling of what this man was doing and what his parties entailed? This is the same time where you had celebrities saying there ain't no party like a Diddy party. Yeah. They knew what was happening, right? Yeah. You have one conversation with Jimmy Levy, and he'll tell you what he knew was happening in Hollywood parties when he would go one walk into a Hollywood party and he's like, I will never attend one of those parties again, because he knew what was happening. Yeah. There is no way that all of the people, and again, we can't say that everybody that was associated with Epstein was guilty. There might have been some people that knew, but because of, hey, I show up at a party and I get taken in a picture next to him, does that mean I'm one of his close associates? No. But we knew that. And
it also doesn't mean you're blackmailed. It doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. I mean, the guy showed up everywhere, and just because you knew him or knew of him doesn't mean that you did anything. But the problem is that nobody wanted to talk about what he was doing. Nobody had the courage or fortitude to say, hey, this guy is, owning people and is promoting child rape.
Which is why we now need to dig a little bit deeper and see who was campaigning, who was dangling this. I'm going to expose the Epstein list, and I'm going to let everybody know we've got U-Hauls filled with documents, right? And I understand in the point where if it's redacted, where if there's a minor, blacking their name out. Yeah. But like you said, any video footage that was obtained, if we have video footage and it's not being released, then those people are complicit in the same exact crime. And you wonder why these women have a fear of coming out and saying what's happening, because their accuser or the accused is walking free. And it could be somebody in a very, very high political position that they have to see every single day on television, knowing that they were complicit in rape.
Well, I don't want the video footage of a child being raped out there, but I do want the information on it. And I do want to know why there's not charges being filed, right? What I don't understand is why the names of the people who are appearing in those videos are being withheld. I don't understand why no one's taking action against any of them. I don't understand why everybody is doing everything possible to sweep the Epstein list under the rug like it didn't happen. I mean, Tom Fitton just FOIA'd the DOJ for the Epstein list. And he actually ended up filing suit over this. Judicial Watch did, God bless them, saying, and apparently they're claiming that Bondi didn't have any communications or information about the Epstein stuff that she claimed was sitting on her desk. Well, is she a liar now, or is she a liar when she said that? Because she's lying somewhere. And listen, I love Trump. I support Trump 100%, but he had Bill Barr for an AG. He had a lot of people around him that I didn't like. And we know there's issues. What I want to know is there an issue here? And the only way I'm going to feel better about this is when I see some high profile prosecutions of some real bad guys. We're not seeing people behind J6 be prosecuted. We're not seeing people behind or around the Epstein list being prosecuted. I mean, they made a big deal about putting the Epstein list out. Well, where the hell is it? You shot off your mouth. I agree. It's a national security concern. It is a major national security concern. It needs to be out there. Every single person who is being blackmailed, we need that evidence out there. And that's just got to be there. And there is no deal on this. There is no bargaining. If you raped a child, you belong in jail for a long, long time. You probably belong castrated and other such things. But, to the maximum extent allowed under the law, you should be prosecuted. Now, we're going to be out and brag. We got this guy who he's key to Tesla. He's going to jail for 20 years. Okay, congratulations. How about the politician that raped a child? What are you doing with him? I mean, I don't care about the Tesla guy. Now, I was excited that they're doing something with Letitia James, but that's a given because what she did was a direct attack on Trump, and she belongs She deserves to get that sort of thing done against her. But that's the only thing that they've done that I've been excited about in terms of major prosecution. And meanwhile, I got to tell you, I love Dan Bongino and Kash Patel. Those two guys are great people, and I respect the hell out of Bongino leaving his show to go try and do something good. But Bongino absolutely ripped it up on the Epstein list in the past. Where is he now? Every day I see these guys coming out and thanking AG Bondi for her great work. Okay. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's got some grand plan that's going to come along. But how long are we waiting for child rapists to be charged? How long are we going to let people continue to be blackmailed who have national security secrets or access to them, and they're still probably being blackmailed by whoever Epstein was working with? How long does that go on? What do you think, Mike?
You want me to lie, or do you want my honest opinion?
I think you should rip it up. I don't care what you say.
I think that there's a foreign government that has stolen every single election, from governors to police to captains to politicians. I think that they have so much dirt on American politicians. And I think after watching an episode of one woman who was responsible for testing drugs in Chicago, when they found fentanyl and cocaine in her car, and they found cocaine that she was using in her desk, they had to open up every single case that she had ever been a witness on. And they had to release all of those people and give them retrials because of the fact that when she was testing the substance, it could have been that it was on her fingers. So it shred a little bit of doubt. So they had 11 years worth of cases that had to be reopened. Some of the people, when they were retried, they were let go, even if they were guilty. My biggest concern is that they have compromised so many politicians, from the smallest all the way to the grandest positions. And that's how deep and dirty this went. And I think if you start to look at the connections between who was Maxwell's father and, him wanting to control the education, he made a very, very, very big attempt to try to purchase McGraw-Hill and control all of our children's education. And you can't find it in a lot of the books these days, Tom Renz, but I remember that there was a quote by Stalin, and Stalin said, "If you give me control of a nation's youth, I can take over the country without firing a single shot." And I think that's what's happening right now.
100%. Now, here's the problem. Here is the problem. Epstein didn't do this alone.
No.
And whoever was involved in it is still involved. The question is, who is it? Right? And is it just one country, or is it multiple? Because if he's selling blackmail, he's probably not only willing to sell it to one. My guess and my personal belief is that the reason that we're not talking about this is because we're a little uncomfortable with the countries that were involved with covering up child rape and blackmailing our politicians. We're a little uncomfortable saying, hey, this was done with this country or that country. I think that would cause a little bit of a foreign policy issue here or there. Because I think people would, especially if people actually got to see the full scope of this, I think they'd lose their minds. I mean, to have a full-fledged child rape ring running around and all the other things that are happening, I mean, it's something that it's phenomenal. And the fact that these people were trying to blackmail and control, and I think that if they release the people who were being blackmailed, the natural follow-up question is who was doing it. And I think that if we find out who it was that was doing it, and who it was they were doing it to, I think the American people will lose their mind. I think that's why it's being buried and covered up. And I think they're just trying to find a way to get this out. My guess is that they really honestly did plan on putting this out. And then once they found out how bad it really is, they just didn't want, they're now trying to figure out what to do with it, because, no one wants to start a war. No one wants to, to totally ruin a relationship with a foreign nation. If they're, especially if it's an allied nation that was doing this. And if you don't think allied nations are capable of this, I got news for you. We're the big kids on the block. Everybody wants a little control over America, whether they're friend or foe. So, I think there's a lot of issues here, and I think it runs deeper. And the real question will be is whether our DOJ has the integrity and fortitude to actually do right and stop the people who are raping children and who are behind the child rape ring, or whether they're going to sell out. Last thoughts. What you got on this, Mike?
I think you're 100% right. And I think that when we start to uncover, who was the head of the CDC, who was the head of Moderna, who's the head of these vaccine companies, and you start looking at all of these politicians, when all of these politicians have to have handlers for these foreign governments, I think it goes even deeper than that. And I think you and I both know when you find the connection for that, you're going to find the connection for the Federal Reserve. You're going to find the connection for JFK, why he was assassinated. Go look into what JFK was trying to regulate and look at who was under investigation. Two of the things that he was opposing was one of those foreign governments, and he was also opposing the Federal Reserve. You go up against the people, let's find out the countries. Most of the people in this country, Tom, not to shift away from Epstein, but most people don't even understand that our Federal Reserve is a private entity. It's not held by the interest of you and I or our children or our grandchildren. It's foreign governments that are setting forth with our wages that regulate. There's no more gold. There's no more gold backing our dollar. It's backed by the full faith of the United States government. But the United States government itself doesn't even own the Federal Reserve. A great friend of one of your friends, John Richardson, I know he's really good friends with G. Edward Griffin. I encourage people, go read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Just go read it. It's out there. It's on Amazon. It's a great book. And you'll see how dark down the rabbit hole it goes when the very foundation of our money is controlled by foreign interest.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, much of our government is controlled by foreign interests. And I will say, though, that Trump is, some of the cases and some of the actions he's taking are actually quite impressive. And one of the things that I don't think could be overstated is Trump saying, listen, there are no independent bureaucracies. All the independent agencies are just part of the executive branch. You fall under one of the three. And there's a SCOTUS case coming up on this, and it's huge. And if Trump gets control and can fire everybody from these branches because they've never been independent, that's extra constitutional. You can't do it. They are part of the executive branch, which means he's got total hiring capacity, which if he does that at the Fed and starts making the Fed transparent, some of that's game over. And if that's one of the 5D chess moves that Trump is playing, that will be world changing. So I hope it is. We'll keep praying. Mike, I appreciate you joining us. Happy Good Friday. Everybody, make sure you go to TomRenz.com. Go right up here, shop, go down to partners, affiliates, go down to Air Water Healing. Mike's got the best air purifiers, water purifiers, stuff on the market. In my opinion, I love the stuff. I'm proud to have him, to be an affiliate and to work with him and to promote his stuff. So I appreciate everything you do, Mike, and I appreciate you giving us some time.
One last thought I want to leave with your audience, because somebody brought up a really good point. I think Jude Curtis had put inside the chat. One of the things that I do want to bring up is I remember when I was working at a grocery store in a deli, and I'll never forget when Casey Anthony got probation for what happened with her daughter. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Bondi was the AG in Florida at that time. And I always, in the back of my mind, wondered if Casey Anthony had a connection with Epstein. And she was going to sing like a canary, because all of the evidence when she was out partying, everything from the decomposing body and the dogs that had smelt decomposing that was in her car, I wondered how on God's green earth she was not let go. And then all of a sudden, when people started talking about it, they made the LeBron James trade to Miami Heat. And now all of a sudden, everybody was talking about LeBron James. And I was like, how did we go from asking about whether Casey Anthony was associated with Epstein to now where everybody's just look over here, LeBron James has agreed to go work with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh in the Miami Heat. And that story just kind of crumbled.
Sleight of hand. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us today. You have a great day, and you got to come back soon.
Absolutely. Happy Good Friday, everybody.
Happy Good Friday. All right. Folks, that's Mike. I think this is a critical issue. I keep bringing it up. A lot of people are afraid to talk about it, but it's a major deal. I want to move into some other things. And I want to get into the White House announcement on COVID. That's my big thing. But before I do, I want to show you guys this. I got a huge boot out of this. The White House posted, I don't know who came up with this, but I love this. They proofread the New York Times, and they sent them back. They said, I fixed it for you, New York Times. Oh, and by the way, Chris Van Hollen is not coming back. They said, the New York Times headline: Senator meets with wrongly deported Maryland man in El Salvador. And so the White House fixed this and said, Senator meets with deported MS-13 illegal alien who's never coming back. That to me is spectacular. You just got to love Trump and the way he does some of this stuff. It is spectacular on every level. So let me move into this. We've got a major thing, and let me just show you right here. This is at whitehouse.gov. The true origins of COVID-19. You got Trump there. Obviously, Trump was approving of this. I mean, I don't think this happened by accident. I think we can safely say it. And let's look at this a little bit, right? So we start out, and this goes through, and they kind of go through everything. And there's a ton of stuff here. So let's kind of go through. We're going to go through some of this, right? Origin, proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2 publication, which was used repeatedly by public health officials to discredit the lab leak theory, was prompted by Dr. Fauci to push the preferred narrative that COVID was originated naturally. And it's garbage. It was all a lie. Here's some facts. The virus possesses biological characteristics not found in nature. Data shows that all COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction into humans. This is contrary to the previous pandemics where there were multiple spillover events, right? So for this to happen just once in one case, you got to understand. Now, first of all, I'm not sure I believe that, but let's go with that. If this were a natural zoonotic spillover thing, why would one bat transmit it to one person? Let's say that bat was in the Wuhan. It just came from one bat in the Wuhan marketplace. Well, if it did, how many people touched that bat? Someone touched it, somebody sold it, somebody handled it. I mean, these marketplaces are busy. Why did only one? Why just one, right? Wuhan is home to China's foremost SARS research lab, which is a history of conducting gain-of-function research, which is gene-altering and organism supercharging in inadequate biosafety levels. The Wuhan Institute of Virology researchers were sick with COVID-like symptoms in the fall of 2019. Months before COVID was discovered in the wet market. Nearly all measures of science, if there were evidence of natural origin, would have already surfaced, but it hasn't. So these are all critical things, right? Now, there's a lot more here. One is this. Let's show you this. This is the Wuhan Institute of Virology right here. And here is the seafood market. Pretty close, right? So yeah, it makes for a convenient thing, right? So they publish this. And I want to talk about, this is huge, right? So Fauci's covering this up because we're doing gain of function work with them. And so you get the Proximal Origins publication, which is this crooked paper that Fauci pushed that said this came from bats. Everybody knew it didn't come from bats. And Fauci, you can see in his emails, because we've got his emails FOIA'd, right? Huge amount of data on his emails. They were FOIA'd, and it shows that he was trying to force and buy off. It looks like he paid off a couple scientists to change their position and push his bullcrap position that this was a spillover thing, right? So this was 100% looks corrupt and looks forced by Fauci. The White House is throwing Fauci under the bus here, right? I think you're going to see Fauci criminally charged. But I also think that we got to be careful with that. So gain of function research is where this really came from. And it was being conducted at the Wuhan lab with EcoHealth Alliance, right? So Peter Daszak used taxpayer money to facilitate this gain of function in Wuhan, right? We know this. We've got all this information. We got the NIH grants, and we've also got U.S. aid grants, right? U.S. aid grants. This is particularly important. What is U.S. aid? Well, we know it's CIA deep state. It's CIA deep state. So new evidence shows the Department of Justice opened investigation to EcoHealth's pandemic era activities. Okay, well, that's good. I hope so. Good. They probably ought to give me a call because I got all the data, but they won't because, well, they're crooked. NIH failed miserably on this. They weren't watching. They weren't overseeing it. According to the White House, NIH fostered an environment that promoted evading federal record-keeping laws, as seen through the actions of Dr. David Morans and FOIA lady Margie Moore. Right? So you've got that. You got Fauci's pardon. You've got the Biden administration engaged in a multi-year campaign to delay, confusion, non-responsiveness, to anything that they could to cover this up. Biden would not work with anybody on this. He was as crooked as could be. And all Biden did was promote his big pharma loving vaccines. I mean, that's all he did. EcoHealth did everything to obstruct investigation. They wouldn't provide data, wouldn't provide anything. It was really, really, really shady. I mean, there's evidence of doctoring documents, all sorts of things. And it looks like Daszak lied to Congress, which is perjury, not that anybody cares. Dr. David Morans, who is Fauci's senior advisor, clearly obstructed and, according to the White House, deliberately obstructed the Senate Select Committee's investigation. He likely lied to Congress on multiple occasions, unlawfully deleted federal COVID-19 records, and shared non-public information about NIH grant processes with EcoHealth Alliance President Peter Daszak. Daszak's a real peach, by the way, folks. Oh, and Ralph Barrick, who was kind of their lead scientist who did all the training on this, is still employed at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Very esteemed guy. If you want to know how to create these diseases, he's there. Apparently, New York's executive chamber, led by Governor Kathy Hochul, leftist extraordinaire, redacted documents, offered numerous illegitimate privilege claims, withheld thousands of documents without an apparent legal basis to obstruct the Select Committee's investigation into Cuomo's pandemic-era failures, because New York was really bad. They're really bad on everything. It's really just awful. Then the White House goes on to talk about the World Health Organization, right? The WHO's response to the COVID pandemic was an abject failure because it caved to pressure from the Chinese Communist Party. They go on with this, right? And this is true. The WHO did whatever the CCP said, and Bill Gates, by the way, because Bill Gates is one of the major, and everything about this was done with Bill Gates and the CCP and the WEF. They're the ones that run the WHO. The WHO is one of the most corrupt organizations on the planet. And they're literally the antithesis of science. All they are is corruption from beginning to end. Now, if you doubt me, let's talk about what the White House has here. Now, in 2020, I filed a lawsuit. In September of 2020, I filed the first major COVID lawsuit. And for any of you that don't remember, and in that lawsuit, we said masks don't work, social distancing doesn't work, lockdowns are bullcrap, and this whole thing is garbage. And we had hundreds and hundreds of pages of evidence to back that up. There was no question about it. That lawsuit was granted discovery. Until our governor and his lawyers had an ex parte meeting with the judge, which is not acceptable, and the Sixth Circuit has recognized this. And the judge then changed the disposition of the case. Now, that's an interesting thing, right? Because it's, that seems like corruption and shadiness to me. But anyways, the result of that case was that we ended up, it created that was the first case. That was the big thing. And once everybody saw the evidence, it changed everything. And Ohio ended up overturning and overriding our crooked Republican Governor Mike DeWine's veto to limit his pandemic powers through our the Republican House and Senate, to their credit, overrode the Republican governor's veto on this. It was huge. And we did that because of that case. Now, in that case, I said social distancing doesn't work. Now, here in 2025, 5 years behind me, the White House says 6 feet apart social distancing recommendation, which shut down schools and small businesses across the country, was arbitrary and not based on science. During closed-door testimony, Fauci testified that the guidance just sort of appeared. It was never science. Fauci was never following the science. He just made it up. We know that. No kidding. I feel vindication's a little late on this, folks, but I'm glad it's here. Mask mandates. Quote, there was no conclusive evidence that masks effectively protected Americans from COVID-19. Public health officials flip-flopped over the efficacy of masks without providing Americans scientific data, causing massive uptick in public distrust. Masks didn't work. Masks don't work. Masks have never worked. And if you're wearing a mask for anything other than surgery, you're an idiot. I will tell you, my wife just fought stage 4 cancer. We did not wear masks. Do you know why? Because it increases her likelihood of infection. It makes it so she inhales all sorts of microplastics, and it doesn't protect her from anything. She had stage 4 cancer, which, by the way, we beat. This was something that you have to understand. That's how much I can tell you masks don't work. They don't. There was never evidence. Now, if you think, by the way, if you want to talk to your cancer doctor about this, ask yourself why your cancer doctor would know about particle physics, which is what you've got to know about to understand whether a mask would work. Now, I've got an expert, a friend of mine, who is one of the foremost experts on the planet on industrial hygiene, which is precisely the field that studies masks and things like that, and he says they don't work. But go ahead and ask your doctor, who has no training or background in this. And I'm sure your esteemed doctor who knows everything, and by the way, is pushing radiation and chemo on everybody for the cancers caused by the vaccine that they're also recommending, will give you a great answer on this, right? Oh boy, there we go. I'm going to get in trouble on that comment. But anyway, so it's all nonsense. Lockdowns. Prolonged lockdowns caused immeasurable harm to not only American economy, but also the mental and physical health of Americans, with particularly negative effect on younger citizens. Rather than prioritizing the protection of the most vulnerable populations, federal and state government policies forced millions of Americans to forego crucial elements of a healthy and financially sound life. So these three things we knew in 2020. It's taken 5 years for anybody to hear it, but, you know, it's finally out there. Thank God. Right? Thank God. I mean, it's incredible, but I'm very glad the White House finally at least acknowledges some of this stuff, right? Former New York governor, and they really go after New York because New York is really, they were a cesspool of corruption. The corruption in New York was one of the worst in the country during COVID. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's March 25th order, which forced nursing homes to accept COVID-19 positive patients, was medical malpractice. Evidence shows that Cuomo and his administration worked to cover up the tragic aftermath of their policy decisions in an apparent effort to shield themselves from accountability. No kidding. Hey, everybody's sick. Let's put them in the nursing home with old people. You mean old people who will probably die from it? Yeah, them. Okay. How dumb is that? How dumb is that? So, you know, they got that. Now, COVID-19 misinformation, which, of course, I still get accused of. In fact, I just got a couple strikes on YouTube where they said that I had provided medical misinformation, despite the fact that I've been proven right every single time. And all the people that they're citing who are saying that I've given medical misinformation have been wrong every single time. Seems like a bit of an issue. It's almost like they're looking for something there. But anyways, quote, public health officials often misled American people through the conflicting messaging, knee-jerk reactions, and a lack of transparency. Most egregiously, the federal government demonized alternative treatments and disfavored narratives such as lab leak theory in a shameful effort to coerce and control the American people's health decisions. When those efforts failed, the Biden administration resorted to outright censorship, coercing, including with the world's largest social media companies, to censor all COVID-19 related dissent. YouTube's still doing that, by the way. That's still a thing. I'm praying that they get this right because, you know, they're a big platform and they could do some good things if they would do that. But, you know, I guess we'll see what happens. So you go through this and you look at this, and I got to tell you, it's a mixed feeling for me. It's mixed feelings for me. You know, we've been trying to get this through people's head for a long time. They won't do anything with it. And now finally they're starting to wake up to it. Now, this does not talk about a few key things. You cannot talk about the COVID origins without recognizing our CIA, DOD, DIA's involvement. This was done with total knowledge and awareness of our deep state, but no one is talking about it. Not one person will touch it. The DARPA proposal, all this stuff, they knew what was happening. And by the way, does anybody to this day believe in any way, shape, or form that we could transfer the technology, the science, the know-how, the techniques to Wuhan, China to create this sort of a biological weapon without export controls? Of course there's export controls. That means that our government was aware that we were doing this. They sanctioned it. They gave grants to promote this, right? This was done with knowledge and awareness and even promotion of our government. Now, no one's talking about that. No one. But it's not hard to prove and it's not hard to see. I'm hoping that Trump will get that part of it down, right? Because as of now, he's missing some key points. He's missing some very key points. So we'll see what happens here. But I will say that at the end of the day, this is a huge deal. And, it's a phenomenal thing for me to see. Folks, on a personal level, I and producer Andrea and people like Bob Gargas, Mike Hamilton, Ron Jenkins, even my friend Joey Gilbert. Don't say that one too loud. Larry B. Kraft, Anna Garner, Jonathan Deemer. These guys are all heroes that fought with me and that supported me and worked with me. A lot of us fought. We fought from the beginning. And it feels pretty good to know that what we did ultimately led to this, because it is. We were the ones that started the fight. There was no fight back with us, without us. Realistically, we had COVID, we had J6, and we had the election stuff. They literally were making no progress on J6, no progress on the election stuff. The only place that there was progress was the fight that I took on, and that's COVID. It worked. I'm quite proud of that. I can stand before God and say, thank you, Lord, for allowing me to have that success. But, it's sad that it took so long and it's taken so much, and we still aren't to justice yet. And we still aren't talking about the deep state involvement. We're still not talking about the big pharma involvement. We're not talking about the fact that Moderna was involved in this project, most likely. We're not talking about Hunter Biden's role in this. And it's just mind-blowing. So anyways, these are big deals and big things, and it's stuff that we really have to be able to look at, and it's a lot coming on. I want to hit real quick before we end the show, because there's some other big things happening. Trump really wanted us to have something to do for Easter, so he also gave out the RFK files. Now, they're not done. So what happened is we've got Tulsi Gabbard released about 10,000 unredacted documents tied to the assassination of Bobby's dad, RFK Sr., right? She said that there's an additional 50,000 hidden files that they just found. So they're going through doing what they got to do to see about releasing that now. There is a massive treasure trove of documents. It's all been hidden. The same with the JFK. I assure you they didn't release all the JFK stuff. There's more. Same with all these things. But this is a big deal. And I got to say, I like seeing Gabbard do this, because I feel like she's much more transparent than what we're getting out of the DOJ. DOJ, I don't trust them very much. So right now, and I haven't had a chance to review all these documents, but there's no smoking gun in the first 10,000 documents about CIA involvement in Bobby's killing. We do know that there were communications between the CIA and LAPD during the investigation of Sirhan, but that there's comms. We don't, it's not enough to do much. We know that there's another 50,000, documents or pages related to this that we're trying to get, but they have to review those before they can put them out naturally. And I understand that. I'm not fussing about that. The release is really a big deal. And it's part of this whole thing about getting all this stuff out. Now, one of the things that's interesting is when they talk about this, they're talking about the release of the RFK, MLK, JFK files. They seem to have forgotten the Epstein files. Everybody's trying to whitewash the Epstein files. They don't want to talk about that. I wonder why. But they are getting these out. Now, I think with the JFK files, there's a lot of stuff that's not out. I mean, now whether they didn't have the documents, because Tulsi said, and I believe Tulsi, that they found these in the National Archives. These extra 50,000 pages or so. I believe that. I believe that there's paperwork hidden all over the place. The guys behind this stuff hid this stuff. They put it in different places so people wouldn't find it. And, it's who knows where this stuff is, right? So, I mean, you got to figure we're the same. This is the same government that has a giant cave where they do retirement. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can look that up if you want to. When a government employee retires, they literally do that. The retirement process occurs in a cave, and that's no joke. So, I mean, of course, our government's hiding stuff all over the place. We don't know where it is or what it is. But I think that Tulsi's doing a good job trying to get there. From any and all accounts, I will say Tulsi Gabbard has been one of my, the irony right now is probably two of my favorite people in the administration are former Democrats, Tulsi Gabbard and RFK. I mean, it's crazy. They seem to be two of the most honest and transparent people in the administration, both working hard to get some things done. And to make no mistake, you can say what you want about Bobby. Bobby is working to get some things done, and he's doing it effectively. So we'll see what happens, but there's a lot happening there, and I'll be interested to see what happens here. I fully expect that over time we're going to start to realize that our CIA has been involved with a lot of this stuff over the years. I mean, now we're even getting some talk about 9/11. And some of that stuff. I mean, so many of the conspiracy theories are going to be shown to be truthful. It's just craziness what's happening right now. Boy, folks, I got to tell you, there's so much more news today, so much good things. But I think we're coming to the end of the show, and I want to finish with this. We've got Easter weekend. It's a big deal. It's a beautiful thing. It represents redemption. It represents salvation. It represents everything. I mean, I love Christmas. It's kind of Christmas, my favorite holiday, but Easter is the most meaningful holiday of the year for Christians. It represents the day that we were saved. So I want to wish all of you happy Good Friday, happy Easter. I hope that all of you find Jesus, but I respect all of you wherever you are. I pray that he finds you and you find him. It's a beautiful faith. It's a beautiful thing to know that a guy like me, even a lawyer, can find redemption. And there's a lot of comfort in that. So happy Easter. Happy Good Friday. Thank you guys for listening, as always. I'm blessed to have such awesome people and awesome support.